Hi, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to B Corps. Thank you very much for joining us. So I'm Fiona Rass-Jones from Make Impact. We are an agency helping companies to lead with purpose, make their business a force for good, and unlock opportunities for growth and innovation. I'm really pleased to be joined today by James Ghaffari, who is the Director of B Corp certification in the UK, and Genevieve Boast, who is People and Sustainability Lead at Equinox Kombucha. So thank you all. Great to have you here. Now I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to start with an introduction to the why and what of B Corps. We're then going to hear from James about the how, the community and the movement. And then we're going to move on to hear from Jen, who's going to talk us through the journey as a recently certified B Corp. We'll move on to a Q&A panel. So if during the session you'd like to add your questions in the comments, then that would be great. I'll be collating those. And then we're going to finish off with some top tips to get started. So we're going to be recording the session today and sharing that with everybody who's registered. And we really value your feedback. So it would be great. We're going to be sharing a survey at the end of this session, and I'll send that out also with the recording. But if you can fill that in as a thank you, we're going to be sending you some additional meeting resources as well. So I'm going to share my screen and kick off with the why and what of B Corps. Great. So why B Corps? Now, B Lab say that our system is broken, and by placing shareholder profits above all else, businesses have harmed our societies and our planet. This view is backed by numerous studies and statistics around inequalities, issues with climate change, and broader social issues that we're facing. And this view is no longer on the sidelines either. There's a growing understanding and agreement that it's necessary for our system to change, and that's being shared by organisations such as the UN, the World Economic Forum, the Business Roundtable, major investors, a growing number of companies and the public. The Edelman Trust Barometer recently showed that 56% of people believe that capitalism today does more harm than good in the world. And we see major media outlets as well, such as the Financial Times, developing their new agenda, Capitalism, Time for a Reset, which underlines that business must make a profit, but it should serve a purpose too. So what are B Corps? Certified B Corps are a new kind of business that balances purpose and profit. They're a community of leaders driving a global movement of people using business as a force for good. There are three main sort of areas that B Corps that distinguishes a B Corp. One is that they're impactful. They're verified as achieving high standards of impact for governance, staff, the community, the environment, and their customers by B Lab. And they are mission locked, so they are legally committed to consider the impact of their decisions on all their stakeholders, not just their shareholders. And there are a group of businesses that are committed to being part of a community and a movement to help each other out and make change happen. So who is doing it? There is a growing number of companies that are doing it at the moment. They include multinationals like Danone. We've got 8 of Unilever's brands, including Ben & Jerry's, Patagonia, Bulb Energy, Bates Wells, WeTransfer, Alessi, Tom's Shoes, Ella's Kitchen, Innocent Drinks, Havas, Cook. I could really go on. And this movement is growing. Since the first lockdown in March, they've seen an increase in certifications by 89%. There are over 3,500 certified B Corps in 150 industries in 74 countries around the world, with one unifying goal. And that's a global economy that uses business as a force for good. I really like this quote from Douglas Lamont, the CEO of Innocent Drinks, in that becoming a B Corp was the natural next step for them, but it was much, much more than a certification. They're joining and adding momentum to a growing movement, one that wants to shift the idea of business being from greed to one of good. So, so doing business for good and becoming a B Corp isn't just the right thing to do. People want to work for, buy from, and invest in businesses that they believe in. And B Corp certification is the most powerful way to build credibility, trust, and value for your business. There's lots of different benefits that can be designed into the process from the start, which include purpose, demonstrating and communicating your purpose and values. The B Impact Assessment provides a framework for companies to not only sort of understand, but improve and share your impact to make sure that you can live that throughout the operations of your organization. Leadership, joining a movement of market leaders and learn from some of the best companies in the world. Growth, there is opportunities to increase customer loyalty, access new markets and investors. I'm just going to unpick that one a little bit as well on the growth front. We've seen studies from the likes of Deloitte, their Millennial Survey and the Zeno Strength of Purpose study that show there's an ongoing continuous increase in trends of people wanting to make ethical purpose decisions. And also on the investment front, FTSE Russell did a survey that shows over half of all asset owners are implementing or evaluating environmental, social and governance issues into their investment strategies. Talent as well, engaging your team and attract new talent. So we've seen huge increases in people wanting to do purposeful work, and there's been a big acceleration of this since the pandemic as well, where people, they want to feel part of something bigger and like they're making a difference. And so there's a real opportunity here to attract some of the best talent for your organization. Competitive edge, so creating a competitive edge and generating positive PR within your industry. And trust, building trust and avoiding perceptions of greenwashing. So we've seen lots of accusations recently of companies who, for purpose washing, greenwashing, overstating what they're doing and getting a fair amount of criticism for it. And there are lots of ways that you can demonstrate your authentic impact and your approach to this, and B Corp is a really strong way to do that. So now you've had an intro to the why and what of B Corps. I'm really pleased to be joined by James Ghaffari. He's the Director of B Corp certification at B Lab UK. They're a leader in economic systems change. Their global network creates policies and tools for business, and they certify companies known as B Corps who are leading the way. And so he's going to be talking to us in just a minute about the how, the community and the movement. And then we're going to hear from Genevieve Boast, People and Sustainability at Equinox Kombucha. They're a Yorkshire B Corp on a mission to make affordable, healthy, sustainable drinks that are good for you and the planet. Their products are sold in restaurants, cafes and shops, including the Co-op, Waitrose, Holland and Barrett, and in 7 European countries. They are winners of numerous Great Taste Awards, and they've just launched a River Cottage range with Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall. So thank you very much for joining me. And James, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Fiona. Really appreciate you you asking me to join, and also dragging me away from my Gmail and my Google Sheets and all of this stuff that I couldn't actually access, which has been a bit of a nightmare this morning. So I'm actually far more happy to be on the call with you all today. And as Fiona said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the community side of things, also how to become a B Corp, and then I'm going to leave all of the things around, you know, what the real experience is like, and what value you really see as a company to Jen, who would be able to speak to it far better than I could. So I just wanted to start very quickly with a big idea that we are in the middle of a kind of global culture shift from the way in which business has been done over the last 5 decades to a way in which business actually takes responsibility for its impacts on society, its impacts on the environment, and actually using that to build a more inclusive economy. And this is not something that is just kind of come out of the blue. This is something that has actually been driven by people and by the desire of people. And we actually, building on the results that Fiona shared earlier, we actually did a poll in 2020 asking the UK public about the role of business in society. And they over 72% of them said that business should have a legal responsibility to planet and people alongside maximizing profits. And so the demand is there from people, and that's employees, that's customers, and this cut across regions in the UK, all political persuasions, all different ages, and so it was a really kind of robust finding. And so what B Corp is trying to do is to kind of build a community that moves away from this old idea of just maximizing value for shareholders to a kind of an idea built for the 21st century, where a business is going to kind of put people and planet alongside profit and make commitments to all of their stakeholders in order to manage the business and to be successful over the long term. And so what the B Corp movement is doing is basically building a community of companies that are doing that, that are going to be leaders and examples for other people to follow, and showing that actually a business can be successful when implementing this new way of doing business. And so B Corps do this in two key ways. They meet high standards of verified social environmental performance through our B Impact assessment, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And also they legally commit to consider the impact of their decisions on all stakeholders and not just shareholders. So they take that idea of the mission that they have as a company and they embed it into their governing documents to hold them to account into the future. And actually, when I was on this, when I was just kind of waiting for everyone to arrive, I had to update this slide because it is changing so quickly. Fiona shared with us the global picture, so I just wanted to kind of share the local picture, that we're actually, I really hope we can hit 450 certified B Corps here in the UK by the end of this year. That's doubled in the last year, and we've just hit our 5th birthday, so the rate of growth is really accelerating. And you might recognize some of the brands that you recognize here. One I'd pick out is Bulb, fastest growing company in the UK in 2019, which again puts pay to the myth that you can't kind of be a successful growing company and kind of make commitments to the environment and to your employees and your customers. And increasingly, the B Corp community are kind of working with their customers and trying to educate them on what B Corp is and what it means. And actually, this is driving awareness increasingly from kind of advertising. So Avon and Cole there in their tube advertising, to Bruichladdich, which is a distillery up in the Hebrides, kind of painted a massive B on their in their factory, to a number of different companies using the B on their packaging, and hopefully you've been seeing these around and about, and awareness has been growing throughout the companies using the B Corp stamp to kind of convey their sustainable credentials. And one other aspect I did want to kind of touch on, because I know there's a range of sizes of companies on the call, is the growing way in which multinationals are engaging with the B Corp movement, from Unilever, as Fiona mentioned, who are buying up a number of different B Corps, to the likes of Danone that have made a very ambitious kind of announcement that they want to become a B Corp by 2025, and they are working through all of their different brands steadily over that time to become a fully B Corp group over that period of time. And so I just wanted to touch on kind of how a company certifies. And there's really kind of two parts to this. The first is passing the assessment, so going online to the B Impact assessment, completing that based on where your company is, and having a verified score of at least 80 points. And the second is making that legal change, so making that amendment to your Articles of Association to say that you will consider the impact of your decisions on all stakeholders and not just shareholders. So just taking that first condition, which is passing the impact assessment. Again, I like to kind of not thinking of it as an exam or an audit. It is very much a framework, and I know Fiona touched on this as part of the benefit, I guess, is that it is a framework and an improvement tool to kind of help your company manage its relationship with its workers, its communities, the environment, its customers. And so, whereas most companies go through this for the first time and they don't score, you know, they score a 50 or a 60, the assessment itself is designed to give you the ideas that can get you to the 80 points. And even if you don't feel like you're going to become a B Corp in the near future, that assessment itself is free and it's confidential. And so I would just say, you know, it could be really valuable. So I would recommend going on and creating an account. And then on the second part of it, demystifying the legal change. So essentially what we have done in this legal change is we've taken language that is already in section 172 of the Companies Act, and we ask companies to take that language and to put it in their articles of association, which means that it frees up the directors of the business to not just make decisions based on maximizing value for shareholders, but being able to make sensible decisions for the long term, decisions that incorporate the effect of those decisions on the environment, on communities, on your workers, on suppliers, on customers. So it really is allowing directors a wider suite of options to take in order to kind of help the company be successful over the long term. And just finally, I did want to touch on a few things about the B Corp community, because once you become a B Corp and you get a stamp of approval or something to say that you are a B Corp, it's really not the end of the journey. We as B-Lab UK, kind of our job is to coordinate spaces for the sharing of best practice within that B Corp community. And the community itself is incredibly dynamic and supportive. So whether it's the Beehive, which is our online social networking site for all of the employees of B Corps in the UK to connect, to our working groups. So whether it's a plastics and packaging working group, net zero working group, people and culture is a really significant one that's been working kind of tirelessly, meeting up fortnightly in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protest to share what they're doing around their representation and diversity in their organizations. And this is really to say that B Corps are not the perfect companies, but they are companies that are committed to continuous improvement and being open and honest about their challenges and wanting to work together. The B Locals are basically regional hubs that we are now trying to build around the UK, so that it's not just, B-Lab UK is based in London, but we want to create regional hubs for growing B Corp awareness and creating engagement in the rest of the UK. There's a list of some of them there, but I know there's a number of businesses on the call that might be based in Yorkshire. At this point next year, I'd love to be able to kind of have Yorkshire on there as well. That's a real big goal for me over the next year. So that would be really exciting for me. And just to finally just touch on a couple of campaigns that we're running, because again, it's not just about kind of hitting the 80 points and making the legal change and then kind of sitting there and saying you're a B Corp. We really love B companies to really get involved. And so one of our net zero campaigns is that on the back of 500 B Corps announcing net zero at COP25, by COP26 next year, we want to work with our community for 50% of them to have announced commitments of net zero 2030 and 100% to be committed to net zero by 2050. So there's a lot of work we want to do on that. And finally, if I can just kind of do a kind of plug at the end, as I said, this is our 5th birthday, and we have created a microsite. So if you want to find out anything about how the B Corp community has grown in the UK over the last 5 years, where we are now, then we've created this kind of microsite, which is designed as a book in 3 acts. And that future act at the end will tell you a little bit about our big campaign for 2021, which is the Better Business Act, where we are kind of working to build a coalition to basically try to convince the government to change the Companies Act in the UK, so that every company, not just B Corps, is legally committed to consider the impact of their decisions on all of their stakeholders and not just shareholders. So fairly ambitious, but if you want to kind of keep updated on that, you can visit the site and sign up for updates on the Better Business Act, because we're not going to be able to do it alone, and we'd love to have loads of different businesses working with us on that. So with that being said, I'm very happy to answer any questions that you have, but I'm more happy to hand over to Jen.
Thank you, James. Thank you. You'd be pleased to hear, so I'm going to break with tradition a little bit, everyone, and not have slides, just because the story of our decision to go with B Corp and the emerging story, I like how you put that, James, the Future Act, it's been so fundamental to us as a business. It's really tricky actually to represent that visually. So because it's integrated in every aspect of our business, and has fundamentally changed the way that we not just act internally, but we act externally. So yeah, to give you the story of Equinox and our journey, because I know this is one of the things I get asked the most by people who are thinking about B Corp, looking at various different sustainability frameworks and what's a good fit for business. I was commissioned to come and work with Equinox late 2018, and Equinox has grown very quickly. It was founded by a couple of backpackers who came back from Asia in 2012 and had discovered a new miracle tea called kombucha, and they decided to start brewing it in their basement in Calderdale in West Yorkshire. And from the point of selling it on market stalls and bottling it in someone's garage, it has grown incredibly quickly, to the point where we're now one of the UK and Europe's biggest suppliers of kombucha, and fast growing. We've been really blessed in the year that we have all been through in 2020 to continue to grow, to continue to expand. And I truly believe that's because we went through the B Corp process throughout 2019, and it's allowed us to completely embed a different form of governance and decision-making into our organization. So we started looking at this back at the beginning of 2019, being in inverted commas, ethical business that was founded for ethical reasons. We actually started asking ourselves some very difficult questions. So in terms of, that's great, but actually, how can we demonstrate that? Can we measure it? Can we really go out and with credibility say that we are doing good for people, for planet, for our local community? And the answer to all of that was likelihood, yes, but none of it is documented and none of it was codified in our business. So we started a process working with our employees, and at that time we had about 25 people in our organization, so still fairly small, looking at various different types of sustainability certifications, doing a piece of work around what really matters to us. What really matters to us as individuals, as a community in the business, what really matters to our local community. So before we even got to B Corp, we started doing some stakeholder engagement and understanding what that picture was for us inside the organization, as well as in our local community. And it was that piece of early analysis and research that actually pushed us down the road towards B Corp. It was our employees who chose B Corp over things like picking a UN SDG or the Planet Mark or working with the Carbon Trust. And it was our customers through participating in social media polls and our investors who came with us on this entire journey, that the common thread towards May 2019 was, look, if we're going to do something, being a challenger brand, then we need to do something properly. And we need to do something that is not just robust, but something that gives us credibility when we actually go out and speak to our community and our customers. And so it was a stakeholder decision to choose B Corp, not just the leadership team decision, not just my decision as the consultant. And that felt really good, even though it was possibly the most difficult certification to achieve. And what that did for us as a business is it moved us along a longer term path towards certification. So I remember when we began on it, lots of people were like, look, just quickly do the free assessment, understand where you are, work out how much you need to get to the 80 points to certify, submit, because B Corp is so busy, it will take a while for your certification to be processed, and then play catch up. And what was interesting for us as an organization is that just didn't feel right. So for us, it was about beyond the certification. It was about actually re-engineering the DNA of our business. And that would take as long as it would take. And so we decided to go the slow and I would say deep route into this. And one of the first things we did was we did do the BIA, the certification assessment, which, as James said, is free and I can't tell you how enlightening that was for us, because actually it was great to be able to give ourselves a pat on the back and go, oh, actually we're doing pretty well, but also look at the different areas in our business where there was a fundamental lack of information. So even though we produce organic kombucha and have all of the organic certifications, we weren't measuring any of our impact environmentally when we first started this journey. So that was actually quite a big black hole for us. We were doing lots of great stuff in terms of our governance and how we were making decisions from kind of every level of the organization, but none of it was documented and therefore none of it was consistent. And so we found all of these really key areas where some of them were fairly quick wins and easy. Some of them were a much longer burn. And so when we did this initial piece of mapping, what that BIA assessment allowed us to do was pretty much decide what our journey for the first 12 months was going to be. And look at, for each one of those 5 sections in B Corp, what was it, not only did we want to achieve to certify and get them 80-point minimum, but actually what was fundamentally important to us as a business? What was going to make us Equinox, what was going to excite our employees, what was going to make a real impact to our community. So I would say the biggest learning from that first early stage journey was we didn't move fast. We actually took our time and did the proper engagement at every level of our organization, so that when we decided how we were going to do employee volunteering, that was an employee decision. When we decided how we were going to go out and start to engage in our local community of Calderdale, that was an employee and a community decision. And that early foundational work that we did to create real conversations at every level of our stakeholder ecosystem has massively paid dividends as we've moved through the certification process, because we've brought everybody with us on a journey. And it's one that we constantly review. So one of the early things we did was actually use the B Corp framework to redefine our mission and our vision, and where did we want to be in 3 to 5 years, and how is this actually going to help us in getting there, and not so much in the what, but the how. So for me, the B Corp certification has all been about the how. Actually, it gives you the framework, and that's what we loved about it, is it's not prescriptive as such. It allows you to evolve and change as a business, and really adapt that framework to your specific needs, your specific community, your specific vision and mission. And so we've continued to do that throughout our journey in this way. We created that mission and then actually did a piece of materiality analysis with our customers, with our employees, with our community, to find out whether that worked for them. What were we missing? What did people want to see us doing? How was that happening? And I don't want you guys to think that this was, it slowed down the business decision. We're still quite small and agile as a company. So we're now at 35 employees at the end of 2020. So this was actually very dynamic and quick, but what it took was an all over decision as a business to go for it. So our leadership team were fully engaged in this approach. And so were our investors, and that was perhaps the biggest win we had right from the outset, is we weren't trying to convince anyone that this was the right thing to do. What we did was told the story about why this was the only thing to do for a business such as ours, and why it actually not only gave us a brand narrative and proposition that our customers and our community resonated with, but it was actually the key to our growth. So when we started looking at our potential customer markets and how we wanted to grow into new product lines. So as Fiona, you mentioned at the beginning, this year, amongst the craziness of 2020, we have launched a new line of organic kombuchas with you, Fernley Whittingstall and River Cottage. That partnership decision was completely governed about, were our 2 organizations a good fit for each other? Were we actually going in the same direction? Did we care about the same things? And actually the very fact that we were a B Corp excited River Cottage and the team there massively, because that's a journey that they want to go on and codify all of their operations. So the very fact that we've been in this journey to B Corp has really helped us to grow commercially, not just in terms of our operations, and that's been huge for us. The other thing I would say is it's really helped us in terms of how we communicate authentically. So I know, James, you mentioned the People and Culture Group and, you know, the whole Black Lives Matter piece. We had a really interesting experience through that when that all came up in the middle of lockdown. We knew several people that we were either in our competitor landscape or in this area who were kind of following the trend of posting the black squares on the social media and supporting that movement, which is great. And yet, as an organization, we had to stop and actually ask ourselves whether that was the right thing to do. Was that authentic? Did we understand enough about the diversity in our company and in our community to be able to do that? Because we wanted to post something that was real, and actually if people asked questions of us, we had an answer for. And so we actually spent about 2 weeks doing a piece of analysis in our local community to understand what is diversity and inclusion in Calderdale, what has happened over COVID, and actually what are some of our challenges. So when we were able to finally post something about it and write a series of blogs, we posted something that was real and backed up by community research. And we wouldn't have done that if it hadn't been such a part and a focus and an emphasis through B Corp. So the entire framework itself has really helped us to define our narrative, define our story, and actually then include people as that evolves and have this two-way dynamic conversation with our staff, with our community, with our customers. I call it inside out change, but B Corp has fundamentally re-engineered the DNA of our company and will continue to do so. But I guess that would be one thing I would say in terms of, so the journey to certification is incredible if you choose to really go into it. So like I said, we chose to not do it quick and fast. We decided to go into it at depth and make sure that we did it in a way that made sense to our strategy. We certified in September of this year, so very new into the B Corp community. And I have been amazed actually at how engaged that community is, at how valuable the working groups have been to us as a business. I'm a part of the regenerative agriculture working group, the circular economy working group. And it's incredible to actually join a peer-to-peer business network like that in the spirit of, I think, James, you mentioned it, the spirit of not knowing all the answers. And actually the spirit of us all coming together as this global network of businesses to ask the right questions and understand how we might respond to some of these challenges that are hitting us, not just as business, but in society as well, environmentally. So that's been an incredible gift in terms of joining this community. And I would say certification is not the end. I know the B Lab people say that. It feels that way when you go into the journey in the way that we have. It can feel like a bit of a marathon, and when you finally get there, it's like, yes, okay. However, it's the beginning. It really is the beginning. So where we are now is we're in a place of integration. We're really blessed in that Equinox have invested in my role. So I'm still a consultant at Equinox. I do work with other B Corp communities outside of this. But it was a big investment in that I not only look after all of our sustainability here, but I look after people and marketing and story. So what that allows us to do is integrate this framework across every aspect of how we do business and how we communicate that. So that's the big piece for us. And having drawn this sort of red line around what we felt we could accomplish that supported our strategy in the first year towards certification, we're now expanding that. So we're now looking at, okay, so what are the pieces we didn't tackle in certification and what makes sense for us now? So as an example, we're now looking very deeply at supply chain and our supplier relationships, which I would say are very fledgling. Given a company our size, we're not very big, so we don't have too much leverage like some of the big boys and girls globally. But what we do have is that approach to having those two-way dialogues. And so one of the pieces of work we're currently doing with the River Cottage team and Yo Valley, who are also one of our big investors, is actually looking at our ecosystem of suppliers and working out how together we can have the right conversations that move everybody forwards. Looking at things like the local provenancing and growing of organic ingredients, not just for Equinox products, but for River Cottage products, for Yo Valley products. So there's a really interesting ecosystem approach to how B Corps and non-B Corps are starting to galvanize around certain key topics, especially as we approach things like Brexit in the UK and you know, certain key unknown factors that we are all waiting to see how that plays out. It's an incredible way of really going about your core business activities. And it's one that we're really blessed our investors have been really supportive of, because they're seeing the results. You know, they're seeing how fast we're actually growing as a result of working in this way. So yes, it's been quite an in-depth journey. And what I would say is, a lot of people say, oh, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. It's not been that for us. It's been really systematic. It's been really enriching. And it's getting deeper with every month that passes, the more that we engage with the community at B Lab and in B Corp in general. The Beehive is an incredible resource. And now, rather than being a small West Yorkshire business who have certain challenges and you're trying to tackle it through your limited ecosystem, now if I have a question, I have a global network of peer colleagues that I can go on board with and start to dialogue with around some of these key issues. So it's been incredible, and I'm sure you all have lots of different questions that are more specific. So I'll stop talking now and allow you to ask some of those perhaps in the Q&A.
Thank you so much, James and Jen. Yeah, I think it's just so inspiring, and this is like the main reason why as well, you know, Make Impact was established to help companies to lead with purpose, make their business a force for good. But that I made the decision recently to go through my B Corp B Leader training to help companies to certify, because there is so much power in it, in that movement and in that process. You know, and Jen, I loved everything that you were saying about the authenticity of it as well. You know, it's just so important to do it right, like rather than just like bringing in like, oh, we're going to have an employee volunteering program, to just bring something in without that kind of consultancy and bringing everyone along with you. It's like, why waste time in just assuming? It's an amazing opportunity to have really powerful conversations with all of your stakeholders, and conversations that you wouldn't normally have, which can then contribute to the growth of your business, sort of in a profitable sense, but also in a sort of well-being and that sort of a growth and learning sense as well. So yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for that. So I'm going to move on to the questions now. So Jen and James, if you'd like to unmute. We've got quite a few. Some, I think we might just start. There's a couple of nuts and bolts ones, James, if you're happy to answer those.
Yeah.
So this is, let's start with, what, from Matthew Stone, what is the minimum size of a B Corp?
Yeah, very good question. We actually have B Corps from kind of one owner, one employee, to the Body Shop, which is thousands of employees around the world. So it really is it really is a kind of a massive variety. And actually that's one of the things I love, is that you have kind of really big businesses that have really big impacts and can really be very influential, but you also have smaller businesses that are actually more live, and they can actually do things and experiment with different business models that actually inspire all of the other businesses in the community and kind of push us further and further and further and show us what is possible. So yeah, all different sizes are very welcome.
And one from Fiona Sorensen, what's the split between business to consumer and business to business businesses?
Yeah, it's a question that comes up quite a lot, and actually I think this is probably our fault, because when we try to communicate or build awareness of B Corp amongst citizens, we tend to lean on those large consumer brands that resonate with people, and they know Danone and they know Innocent Drinks and that kind of thing. But actually our community in the UK at least leans a little bit more towards B2B. And I think that's probably because about one of the things that Jen mentioned around employees and what this means for kind of engaging and attracting and retaining top talent. And so I don't want to underestimate how useful it can be in a B2B environment, especially when you're in a B2B environment in kind of a competitive recruitment industry. It's something that helps you to engage with your employees and helps them to understand that they can be themselves at work, and their employer is aligned to the same values as they are.
Thank you. I've got a couple that are focused for you, Jen, in particular. So I've got one from Kyle Sue. Did you face any challenges or pushback from people in the journey towards becoming a B Corp, and how did you overcome it?
Thanks, Kyle, for that question. Yeah, I don't want to paint the picture it was all rosy. We had quite an outdated community investment model when I joined the business, and just due to the fact that it was kind of all about the donation of profits as opposed to revenue. So that was one of the first things we had to do when we started this journey, was actually look at what makes sense to us. And what would the question we asked ourselves is, what would a B Corp do on this? So we've actually reframed the way we do community investment, both in kind and financial, based on revenue instead, to get us out of the way of this kind of perpetually kicking the can down the road on profits. And that is different. That did receive a little bit of, I would say, creative dialogue with our investors. And it did take some convincing, and you know, that's a dialogue that we're happy to have. And actually, because of all of the investment that we've done with local stakeholders in Calderdale, the sorts of projects that we want to support through that community investment, they all have tangible research sat behind them, not just in terms of why is this a real issue in our local community, why does it make sense for Equinox to support it, but why do our customers care about it? And I think doing that, we do pretty much, I mean, it's kind of biannual, but we do a customer pulse check for our materiality analysis, just to check in and see what's really mattering to people. Those 3 strands help you to tell the story, and they helped you to tell the story in terms of you know, everything from why does this matter to the people that engage with us on social media, through to why does this matter in terms of the people that then come to our website and actually buy our products. And you know, one of the things we've been able to do over this year in 2020 is look at the direct correlation between our social campaigns. Much of them, if you guys have a look on the Equinox Instagram or Facebook, you'll see have been around B Corp, they've been around our social action, they've been around our environmental work, around our packaging and our products, and how that actually translates into online sales. So it's about telling the entire story, basically, and not forgetting one side of that, and looking at our impact as an ecosystem. So all of our community investment is not just about developing our own talent internally or even attracting future talent in the region. It's about doing the right thing for our local community. So one of the things that we have is like many regions, we have a challenge with young people coming out of college who lack life skills and lack motivation. So we're looking at a big piece of work right now with the Northern Powerhouse Initiative to support youth enterprise. That supports our business, it supports the growth of our employees, because the idea is our employees will deliver that training and development and apprentice program, but it supports our local community. And then of course you get to tell the story, so our customers get engaged in it. So it really is this ecosystem approach to change is how we've managed to overcome any kickback we've had to these kinds of fundamental business decisions. And actually I know certainly myself and the leadership team welcome the kickback. And in fact, actually, because it helps you to think through these fundamentally challenging issues that we're facing as a business now, which is, look, in a year where a lot of us are struggling due to, you know, profit margins or revenues having dropped or all of the craziness that 2020 has brought, how do we continue to do the right thing for all our stakeholders whilst maintaining our own sustainability as a business?
Thanks, Jen. James, another one for you. This is from Jens Emick. I hope I pronounced that right. How does B Corp enable employees to contribute to responsible company goals through their company in measurable and tangible ways at the individual level?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. And I think it does speak to a little of what of what Jen mentioned earlier, and actually it's the way in which I think is really, really engaging for a company to approach B Corp, in that you can always kind of use the assessment to understand different policies and practices that could kind of make your business more impactful, and also could push your score up to the 80 points needed to certify. But it's even more engaging if you basically, you can go through it once and then see, okay, well, we're at a 65 and we need to get to 80. And at that point, to actually bring your employees along with you and just say, okay, we're doing so well in our workers area, but we're actually not doing that well in environment, for instance. So what are we doing here? Is it our scope 1? Is it our scope 2? Is it our scope 3? What can we do around this? Especially nowadays, I mean, it's a process that we've done at B Lab UK. It's like, well, if you take it to the individual level, what are you commuting using? Are you driving to work? Are you not driving to work? If you're working from home, like most people are doing, where does your energy come from? Where's your electric and where's your gas coming from? Is it renewable sources? And so it is something that can really engage the employees on that journey. I would also do a shout out for a B Corp, which is Do Nation, which they do kind of employee volunteering, and they kind of gamify employee volunteering. And so there's a lot of kind of things that you can do as an individual to get your company score up, and you can kind of fight against different B Corps. I know we're on there as well. I know we're doing really badly at the moment, I think. So we need to improve, we need to up our game on that. But that's even more on the individual level, where you can, like, your employees kind of say, well, we're going to go vegetarian or vegan or something for X number of days, and then kind of gamifies it like that. So that's Do Nation. But I wonder if, Jen, if you wanted to comment on that at all, because obviously you've experienced it and the way in which you've worked with your employees to get your score up, but it's more around the impact that you can have as an organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would reflect that. I think it's all about the mechanism to engage employees as well. So, understanding what works for them. So we had a WhatsApp group set up where it was much more dynamic. We're in a production and manufacturing environment, so it's very rare you can get people out of that environment to have sit down meetings. So we would interact with them over WhatsApp and ask them little pulse checks questions every week. So like you said, James, right, scope 2 emissions, right, this is something we're struggling with. We don't know the answers. What do you guys think? And our staff respond much better that way. And we do have monthly kitchen sessions where I bring everybody a booch and we literally sit down whilst everybody's having lunch and chat. And I think that was the biggest thing that I learned, was the less formal that we made the employee engagement, the more effective, because you're literally just colleagues and human beings interacting together to discover. So that idea of we don't know the answers, we all want to work together as a group to find those answers, in a way kind of gamified it itself, because it was a challenge and an adventure. And that's how we badged that. Well, it's how we continue to badge the B Corp journey. And what I would say is, it's for us, we started off as I can say this, hippie kind of company. So for us, one of the biggest things that we've had is not just talking about the human ecosystem, but how do we understand our environmental ecosystem? So for us, climate change, net zero, which is something we're currently considering how we do that in a growth cycle. So what does that mean? And actually getting our employees to go away and research that and come back with ideas and contribute to the dialogue is really important.
Thank you both so much. There's still some great questions there, but unfortunately we've run out of time, because I'm going to need to still cover off on top tips and closing the session. But if you've got any questions that are outstanding, please feel free to email me, fiona@makeimpact.co.uk, and I'll make sure you get your answers. So I'm going to focus now. So I think, we've talked a lot about this process being a journey, and there's no end goal. There's no company that is like, yes, they're the final end product. Even the best company at this in the world sees themselves on this journey continuing. They can always improve, always do more. And I think, as a part of that, you need to remember that you need to start somewhere, and be authentic, and don't try and do it all at once. But Jen and James, what would be each of you one top tip on how to start this process? Jen, do you want to go first? Then we'll go on to you, James.
Really, I mean, if you haven't already gathered, stakeholder engagement. Understand who your ecosystem is, inside and outside of your organization, human and environmental, and start a dialogue with them, because we will never know the answers, but the big we will definitely give you that mirror back so that you have something tangible to work with.
Thanks, Jen. And James, what would be your first top tip?
Yeah, I would say, I think just kind of engage with it. So just kind of go onto the website, go onto Be Impact Assessment, and just have a look at what the framework is like. And in going through that the first time, no one's going to be able to do it alone. And so you need to kind of get together a really good group of people within the organization from the kind of key departments you'll need information from. So like finance, sustainability, if you have a department like that, facilities, HR, definitely. And the best way of doing that, I always think, is just to get people to volunteer, because there'll be people in your organization that are really interested in something like this and like really passionate maybe in their private lives. So if you get them to volunteer themselves, then they're going to be really engaged on this, because ultimately sometimes people who work in HR don't necessarily, they haven't made the kind of the step in their head that they can actually make a massive impact on the company's general impact. Or if you work in finance, that person might never have thought, oh, actually, there are things that I can do in my day-to-day job that aligns with my values outside of work. And so by giving the employees that opportunity, they're going to be even more kind of committed and even more kind of helpful in starting that journey from you. So I think that's definitely what I would go for.
Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me in this session. I've been re-inspired by it all myself. I hope that everybody else here has too. James and Jen, if you'd be happy to share how people can contact you in the comments so that they can reach out and get started. As I mentioned, if you would be happy to complete a survey, I've included that also in the chat. If you're happy to fill that in, then we'll send you additional resources, but we will be sending out this recording so that you can have access to watch it again. So yeah, we've been Make Impact, and I hope you've really enjoyed the session and that you feel clear about what B Corps are and are ready to start your journey. However, if you would like some help, please do get in touch with us. As I said before, we help companies to lead with purpose and make their business for good while unlocking opportunities for business growth and innovation. And please get in touch. It's makeimpact.co.uk. Thanks again to James and Jen, and also One Yorkshire for helping promote the event. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.